A black male father has a licensed gun, is shot by unmarked police and no identification on the vehicle at all. With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. Put up the picture full mass. This is a hell of a story. You're looking at Mr. Daniel Lewis. He was 27 years of age, a black father of 2 children with a clean criminal background. I say that up front, shouldn't have to, but that's because typically that would be the line next from law enforcement. He had no criminal background, so they could not vilify him in the same way. He had a concealed weapons permit. He was shot and killed by police in South Florida. This was in a case that is now raising more questions than answers. So you see Miss Angela Lewis in this picture. That is the mother. She's talking to reporters, obviously very emotional. The son of a retired New York police officer, Daniel Lewis, was killed on May 31st after being shot 5 times in his backyard. It was the backyard of his home, Miami Gardens. It's a location, that's a municipality in northern Miami-Dade County with a majority black population. So, and you heard me right, son of a cop, okay? That night, Miami Gardens, police officers were working with agents from the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It's called a Joint Task Force to combat gun violence. That's according to NBC Miami. Law enforcement officials told CBS Miami they were, quote, looking for somebody, end quote, but have not yet to release the name of that person or the reason why they were looking for that alleged person. Red flag number 1. Attorneys representing Lewis, the Lewis family, said it all started when law enforcement agents in an unmarked black vehicle with no emergency lights, no sirens, began following his cousins and his sister. They were driving through the neighborhood in their car, believing gang members were following them. They panicked and drove into the backyard of their family's home. His sister then ran out of the car and into the home through the back door. Lewis, who was inside of the home, stepped out the back door with his gun to see what was going on and was shot and killed within seconds. Okay? Now, let me remind you of the incident in Florida we reported on just a few weeks ago, where a man serving in the U.S. military was shot and killed within a second, maybe less, because he decided to answer his door with his legally obtained gun. He didn't point it at anybody. The deputy decided to shoot him and kill him. Once again, this man has a licensed concealed carry permit. He's shot and killed. I watched my son take his last breath, the mother says, and that's the hardest thing a mother could ever do. From the first to the last, said his mother. Angela Lewis said this during a press conference in front of the Miami Gardens Police Department on July 2nd. According to NBC Miami, quote, nobody will understand what was taken from us. And all we want to know is why. Why did it have to happen? Police are claiming he shot at them first, prompting them to return fire. But attorneys representing the Lewis family said none of the shells at the scene came from his gun. What was the rush? Question mark. What was the urgency to fire upon Mr. Lewis this night? That is a question of attorney Chris Lomax during the press conference, during which attorneys said they do plan to file a lawsuit, likely federal, according to NBC Miami, There was none. This was a bad shoot. It did not have to happen. It's been more than a month since the shooting, and neither Miami Gardens Police nor the ATF have released much information about the shooting, including details about the person they alleged they were supposedly looking for, or a confirmation of whether Lewis had even fired his gun. Not even confirmation of that. Quote, unfortunately, some individuals discharged firearms at some Miami Gardens detectives, as well as some of my agents. Christopher Robinson, the agent in charge of the Miami ATF office, told NBC Miami the night of the shooting. Quote, gunfire was returned, one individual struck, and he's unfortunately deceased. So that was the spin during the actual night of the incident. And since then, neither the local police nor the federal agency, they have not decided. They have neglected to provide any information corroborating their side of the story. There's more. Angela Lewis told the Herald that her 25-year-old nephew, who had hopped out of a car, was taken into custody after being ordered to lie on the ground, but he was released within hours. Attorneys representing Lewis's family still have not determined whether he even knew they were cops. Quote, not once did anyone yell police, stop, police, freeze. Attorney Ariel Lett said during the press conference. Instead, what they did was they gunned down a law-abiding citizen in his backyard on his back doorstep without a warning. End quote. Under the known circumstances, and I emphasize known circumstances, Lett believes Lewis had every right to defend his home from people with guns who never identified themselves as cops. The Castle Doctrine would seem to apply to you. It would apply that you have a man who committed no crimes, who was known that the family committed no crimes, and who his sister just ran into the house screaming for her life as the car she was in was being shot at by an unknown assailant. A lot of unanswered questions here, but I would tell you this. If this shooting was justified, typically law enforcement will release evidence to support their claim. We have seen them do this time and time again. They will put it out on their Facebook page, on their Twitter account. They will provide information to try and contextualize the individual who is deceased as a villain, even if they do not provide information germane to the actual shooting. So you mean to tell me that these two police agencies, one federal, the other one local, they cannot provide any information to corroborate that they were shot at? They cannot provide any information as to their, validation for why they were following or stalking another citizen? These things are outside of the norm, for sure. Something doesn't smell right. All right, share your thoughts here.
Yeah, they won't release more because they're likely lying, as police often do, and they will not cop to the mistake. This has shades of it. I know it wasn't a no-knock warrant, and the victims in this case have no record, and I don't know why you were following people. But it reminds me of Breonna Taylor. Remember?
Yep.
She was asleep, minding her own business. All of a sudden, there's a thud, a bang, instantly entering. They thought they were being robbed. And when the boyfriend, who's still, you tried to charge him, but that wasn't necessary because you were lying then. You didn't announce yourself. It's sick. So what Black people have to understand is the laws that are on the books weren't written for us and they don't apply to us. Philando Castile knows that as he rests, and others are finding out every single day.
That's right. And you don't hear the gun rights.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I start this video, I would like to give a shout out to Dr. Rashard Ritchie of Indisputable for this story. And let me say this, it happens all the time. Incidents like this. Now, this incident happened in Miami Gardens, Florida, right? 27-year-old Daniel Lewis, a father of two children, a son of the New York City police officer. I'm just gonna keep it real. The son of a son of a retired New York City police officer, and of course, a registered gun owner in the state of Florida. Obviously, he was shot and unalive by Miami Gardens police. And all because he was walking in this back porch and try to find out what's going on. And unfortunately, he was shot by Miami Garden police. And it's not, they really wasn't wearing any uniform. The car was unmarked, which I already knew right then and there something's up with that. All of a sudden, this would remind you of a story that I've done, the incident in Chicago when Chicago police stop a black man in an unmarked car. And then you got Fernando Castillo, then Breonna Taylor, mainly similar to those cases. And still, they claiming that Miami Gardens police is looking for someone. They did not even say the name of the someone they were looking for, right? And then they haven't even identified the officer that shot and unalived Daniel Lewis. So all these unanswered questions are happening right now. And then police says, and I quote, that, that it was a shooting. They shot a person. Unfortunately, he was unalive. But, then Daniel Lewis had a gun. Unfortunately, according to the lawyers of Daniel Lewis's family, the shell cases and others wasn't even on the scene, wasn't even on the ground. So you telling me that this young 27-year-old father of two, who is the son of a retired NYPD officer and, of course, a registered gun owner, didn't know what's going on. He looked in the back, quote unquote, the back porch to figure out, and he was shot by Miami Gardens police. And basically they said that his cousin, along with his sister, was followed by a SUV, an unmarked SUV. Turned out it was the Miami Gardens police officers. And basically they were scared because they thought they were gang members. They haven't even identified themselves as police officers. And that tells you right there what's going to happen. And so this young man who has a clean record, 27, father of two, the son of a retired NYPD officer, a registered gun owner, who's basically heard noises. So he went to the back porch. Unfortunately, Miami Gardens police unalived him for no apparent reason. So the families didn't understand what happened and why Angela, who's the mother of this young man, didn't understand why did it happen, let alone this was totally unnecessary. So right now, the question is, and I've been telling you on this video so many times, when is enough enough? And they talking about, well, police, they need to defund the police and blah, blah, blah. I disagree with that. I disagree with that completely, because even though they're going to defund the police, they're still going to do what they do. And I told you how they can stop all of this. It's in qualified immunity. That's the only way they can stop all of this. But unfortunately, they're not doing it. Now, Congress and senators, even the president, still, support the police in those situations. So they continue doing what they're doing. But I told y'all before, the only way they can stop is in qualified immunity. And they still doing what they're doing. And for those of you that don't know what Lions Den, what's qualified immunity means? Well, qualified immunity, if they can end that, that means that if they can end qualified immunity, that means they don't have to worry about, they could be arrested, they could be held accountable for their actions. And so you got this situation in Miami Gardens, Florida, where this young man who was a father of two, who was the son of a retired NYPD cop, a registered gun owner who didn't do anything wrong, and already guess what? He's a clean record. So the media can't bring up his criminal past because there isn't any. There is none. So I want to know what you think about this, because this right here should tell you that whether this dude had a criminal past or don't have a criminal past. And again, there is none criminal past at all. Now they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do in the police end, because you're going to have to deal with police unions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you, like I told you before, you notice that they don't talk about the officer who was responsible for this, let alone why the officers, they say they was looking for someone, but they don't even know who they was looking for. They won't even give you the name who they were looking for. But yet, and they said it's under investigation. But I'm gonna tell you like this: this is another case of a Breonna Taylor situation, a Fernando Castillo situation, a Stephon Clark situation. It's some similar to all these cases, and still these officers, and I'm gonna tell you like this, they're probably gonna say, well, you know, they feared for their lives. Which, by the way, even though yes, he had a gun, there's no evidence that he pointed a gun at officers. There's no evidence that he shot, and the shell cases was on the ground, belongs to the gun that he possesses. So there's no proof at all. But still under investigation. Y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments.